All right, hey guys, how you going? So just let's give it a few minutes, let a few people jump on. So we're going to talk about anger today. So yeah, I just thought be a good opportunity to jump on here and let you know how I've coped with anger in the past and what I've done to really process that and get control of it now so that it doesn't run my life. So give us a wave or a like or just say hi in the comments just so I know that you're there. I see a few people coming on now, so I might just give it a minute or two. But yeah, like I say, just give us a quick wave. Let us know you're here. Mark and Jen, I can see you're here. Simon, how you going? Here we go. We've got a few more coming on now, so that's good. Another mic. Yeah. Hope you're all enjoying the autumn weather. We're starting to cool off a little bit here. Hasn't been too bad lately though. Typical farmer talk, eh? All right, so we've got about 10, so I might get started. Yeah, just wait a second or more. Hey, Aaron, how are you? Heidi, good to see you. So while, if at any stage you've got a question, I'm really hoping people will ask questions actually, because I could just sit here and blabber out stuff all the time, but I really like to directly ask questions that people may have. G'day, Belle. So if you've got a question at any time, just type her in and I'll do my best to answer it. That gives the whole group some really good value and feedback. So yeah, so first of all, just welcome. Thanks for coming. And you know, you've probably just seen over the last couple or 10 days where I was posting about anger and stuff like that. And I talked about it being a whole year since I remember really losing my shit. And I remember it pretty vividly still. Because it was the point where I really went, holy hell, I've really got to get a hold of this. And, it won't play. Heidi? Why not? Hopefully this will... Is everyone else able to see and hear me? Just give us a yep or something in the comments here if you can see or hear me. So we've got plenty coming on. Well, I think I'll probably keep going anyway, and if it's not working, then at least everyone will get to watch this on replay. So I was just saying, yeah, just over a year ago, I remember when I really... Oh, Simon, you're sweet, you can hear me? Cool. So over a year ago, I really lost my shit on the farm. It wasn't the first time I'd done it, but it was a time where I really thought, shit, I've actually got to take control of this because it puts me in a state that I don't like at all. And it was, you know, I talked about how I was just shifting some lambs across a gorge at home, and they, you know, most of them went down across the gorge and up the other side and out through the gate, which was straightforward. And Dad was actually on the other side of the gorge just waiting for them to come out so he could, you know, go take down the other side. And there was 20 odd lambs went down, and hey James, yeah, there was 20 odd lambs went down and they cut off the one side and ended up in the blackberry. And I said how it went through the stages of it going, well, that's annoying. And then it was irritating. And then it was frustrating. And then I was pissed off. And then I was really, really angry. And then I just lost my shit. And it was happening just one thing after another outside of my awareness. And it just made me, I didn't intercept it fast enough. And it just got me to a point where I was completely out of control of my own emotions and my own physical body, right? And I remember being down there and yelling and swearing and cursing. And then I remember thinking, well, I wonder what Dad's thinking right now. You know, because he was up there, he would have heard every word of it. So it really got to that point where it was out of control. And my way of venting whenever I lost anger was to really yell and scream, especially at the animals on the farm. And one thing I really did a lot was blame my dogs. So as soon as, even if, you know, you get the old skinny ewe that runs off down into the gully when you're mustering, I would always blame my dogs. Now, it wasn't until I realized, holy shit, I'm responsible for how well those dogs are trained. And it was when I did that, that was part of the understanding the anger and that. But when I realized that, I was like, I can't blame my dogs anymore because I'm the one that's trained it. So I'm the one at fault because I haven't trained that dog well enough. So I was able to sort of deal with that, but I still was getting angry with the animals and stuff like that. And it just got, you know, like I said, it got just completely out of control where I lost my shit a lot. And when it, like I said in that post earlier, it was just before I was going to do one of my personal development courses. And what I realized in that was I was using anger as a way of getting control. And that was just my way of getting control, was to use anger. And normally with the dogs, it was yelling and screaming at them, thinking, oh, if I use an angry voice, I'm going to get control back from them. However, if anyone's got working dogs, they know that, or any dog or any animal, you know that you start yelling at it, it just actually switches off. So it wasn't working yet. I didn't realize that, so I just kept trying it. But what through realizing that using anger was my way to get was my way of trying to get control, was then I was then able to track back why was I using anger to get control. And if you think about any child, any kid, when they're young, they always experience anger for some reason, right? And the first time they experience is probably normally with a brother or sister that's really pissing them off or something in the lounge or the bedroom playing with toys. And it gets to the point where one of them will just use anger to push the other sibling away. And now what happens is that's normally like 2 or 3 years old, maybe younger, maybe a little bit older, but they actually download the belief that, oh shit, when I use anger, I get the result. So you got brother, sister playing, brother pushes a sister in an angry state and she runs off crying. He downloads the belief, oh, using anger gets me control back. So then what he does is he's downloaded that, because when you're so young, you're in an unconscious state that whatever you experienced the first time, you believe that to be true. So then the little boy there's pushed his sister's run away, he's gone, sweet. I was out of control, I used anger, got control back. Now I believe I can use anger to get control. So they go through life thinking a good way to get control back whenever you're losing control is to use anger. And, that plays out many different ways for many different people. I actually spoke to a guy last week and he talked about how when he was so young, when he was primary school and even high school, he was so little. And he always felt like he couldn't stand up for himself. And then one day when he was about 22, he got in a fight with a real big guy, like he was 1.5 times his size, and managed to get on top of him and beat the shit out of him. He then realized that using anger and violence was a really good way to get control. And now he's in a place of situation now where he's got kids of his own that as soon as they do something that pisses him off, he uses verbal anger at them to try and get control back. And he realizes that by doing that, his kids are actually growing up to dislike him. And in 5 years, they're going to leave home and probably not want to come back to see him. So he's got himself in a situation now where he's using anger to take control of his children. However, he realizes it's building this massive divide. And if he doesn't get on top of it, his kids are going to leave home. They're not going to like him. They're not going to come back to visit him. And then when they have children of their own, one, they're going to pass that trait on to them probably because they're going to see, well, dad used to use anger. And also the other thing is he's not going to get to see his grandchildren. So he really wants to get on top of that. It's just been playing out for so long in his life now that it's got to the point where it's the same as what I was. It's just the anger is taking over and you don't go, oh shit, I've got to intercept this. Normally it's too late. You get yourself in such a rage that you just start losing control and it's just a mess, right? So, so the anger is always learned at a really young age, and it's normally a way to take control. So what does anger do? Like, why have we chosen to take on anger? What anger does is, hey Greta, hey Judy, so what anger does is it builds a level of certainty in the body. It really gets the blood flowing and raises your awareness and builds that certainty and really portrays a solid stance, right, of who you can be to exude certainty and control. Now, the problem is there's two things. There's controlled anger and aggression and uncontrolled anger and aggression, right? Now, if it gets the uncontrolled bit, it's dangerous. I mean, if you look at the guy here, Conor McGregor, so a few years ago, he had a lot of uncontrolled anger and aggression, and he would just lose his shit. I mean, he got in that fight in the pub, I think it was, and beat up the old fella or the old lady or whatever. Now, that was uncontrolled anger and aggression. And now if you go and look at his last fight that he had in the UFC, he did a lot of work by getting himself a coach to work on controlling that anger, to direct the aggressiveness and assertiveness. And then he won his last fight against a really good fighter in 40 seconds. Now, what does that tell you? He learned how to control that anger and direct the energy because he got that blood flowing and he got that feeling of assertiveness and confidence and certainty, but he directed it in a really good way that was going to be able to serve him in his arena, literally in his arena of the octagon with the UFC. So the reason he did that was he got advice on how to control his anger and direct it, because anger is warranted, right? I mean, if you talk, I've been in the army, and anyone who's in the army knows you have to have a certain amount of anger and aggression to take control of a situation so that you can be in control and then dominate the enemy. Now, it's always the army and the armed forces will teach you how to have calm, controlled, assertive anger, not out of control anger. So, so now whenever if you've got yourself in a situation where your anger is out of control, here's what I would suggest you do, and here's what worked for me, is you need to identify where the anger is coming from. Identify in the body where the anger, as soon as you, like when you're completely out of control, you're normally out of your head. As soon as you come back, go, right, where did I feel that anger? People will feel it in different places, in the gut, in the chest, in the head, the neck, arms, limbs, different parts of their body. Identify where the anger is coming from and take note of that. And then once you cool down, I want you to go back and revisit which part of the body the anger came from and sit with it and ask yourself, what do I need to know here? Just sit in a quiet spot and go, what do I need to know? So then your unconscious mind can bring to you the reason why you felt anger in that part of the body. And what you'll always find is underlying anger, behind all anger is a feeling of loss, hurt, or sadness. So, I'll catch up on that one, Simon. So, behind all anger is a feeling of loss, hurt, or sadness. Now, when you identify where in the body the anger is coming from, and you ask yourself, what do I feel like I've lost? Why do I feel hurt? Or why do I feel a level of sadness? If you're sitting there in a quiet spot, your answer will come to you. It may not come directly straight away, but the answer will come to you while you're focusing on that part of the body. And then you can actually break down why the anger is coming out through the feeling of loss, hurt, and sadness. Okay? So for me, it was a loss of control. And then I actually broke that down. Like, I really had to break that down, what that meant to me. So if I lost control, I had this fear that I was going to fail. Now, if I felt like I was going to fail, I felt like I'd be rejected. My biggest fear growing up was a fear of rejection, which is another whole story. But if anyone went to primary school or high school with me, I was a real loner, right? And I feared rejection because I didn't want to. I was only surrounded by a certain number of people, and I feared not being part of the group. So I had to shut myself down so that I wouldn't say or do anything to be omitted from the group, which meant I took on the fear of failure, because if I tried something and failed, I felt like people would look at me and laugh at me and then go, oh, nah, and reject me. So then if you take on the fear of failure, which is what happened through me, through all of that, you actually end up having a fear of success because you don't know how to get it. Now, then if you go, well, if I can't succeed and I'm not a success, who's going to like me? And if I go, well, if nobody likes me, then nobody's going to love me. And then if I go, if nobody likes me or loves me, how could I like and love myself? And then you go, well, what's the fucking point, right? Like, if I can't like or love myself, what's the point? So I took on the belief, or I took on the understanding that I just didn't accept myself. Like, every time I was angry, it was because I didn't accept myself. I didn't accept that I could actually fail and not be a failure. I didn't know that by failing is actually a lesson. And I had this massive feeling of not accepting myself. So if you're getting angry a lot, I really advise that you sit with it and ask yourself, why am I so angry right now? Like, what's the truth? What is the truth? And for me, it was, I just feel like I'm losing control. But it goes so deeper than that, right? And if you don't do that deep question asking, then you're never going to get it. You're going to do what I did and go, fuck fine, I'll do something different next time. And if you don't get the answer you need, it's just going to keep coming back. It always will come back until you find the answer. And then once you find the answer, you have to resolve it. Because I could have gone, it's just because I don't accept myself. And then gone back to work the next day and just been pissed off again. Or gone back to work after I did that course. So you've got to find the answer. And it's a lot of deep questions you have to ask yourself. So, once I fully accepted myself and took that on, that, everything I have done in my life, I wrote a list of everything I'm proud about in my life, because that means I was writing down things I had achieved. I'd write down all the big and little things so that I could go, wow, I've achieved that, I've done that, I've done that, I've done that. And it builds you up so much more that while you're failing in one or two little areas, it doesn't matter because you've succeeded in so many others. So there's two questions I probably want you to take away from this is, what's the real underlying reason why you are using anger? And the other one, which I haven't actually touched on yet, is where did you learn anger from? Because when we're born, we know nothing. Everything that's happened in your life, every habit, trait, pattern, behavior, whatever, you have learned from someone. And it's going to have been in that first 7 years where you got your base of who you are. So where did you learn anger from? Because it's not just something you make up. You have to witness it to be able to learn it. So, if you take, that would be my two questions I'd go away from this to ask is what's the real underlying reason to have the anger? And like I said, 90% of it is they just want a feeling of control back. I can tell you this, it goes deeper than that. Why do you want the control? Why do you need the control? And the other one is, where did you learn the anger? So I'd just, go away and ask yourself those questions. Just with Simon, your question, let me just scroll back. I think it was about one question. The guy I'm working with loses his cool almost uncontrollably on the farm, i.e. dogs or towards stock. How do I tell him to wind his head in? A good question would be ask why he has to use the anger and go, is there a better way to solve this? Is there something different we can do to solve to fix the situation or to manage the situation? If it's always at his dogs, I'd be asking how many hours are you spending training them? Because that's what I wasn't doing. If it's just at stock, it's like stock have their own brain, right? They do what they want to do. It's like I heard a quote from Peter Crone. He goes, trying to control something like that is like waking up in the morning, walking outside and going, who put the sun there? Why is the sun there? It should be over there. Like, that's just something you can't control. And you can't control every single thing an animal will do on the farm. Okay? So you have to accept that that's the way it is and that's the way they are. So for him, I'd be asking, what's another way you could handle this? And also, what can you do differently? What's another way to handle it? And why are you using anger? Why are you using anger to control this or to vent right now? And what's another way, what's a better way you can control that? So that would be, that's a classic thing with the farm thing, right? I was an expert at losing my shit. If anyone else has got any quick questions, I'll just stick on here for another few minutes. So just type them in. That's pretty much what I was going to cover today. I'll just check my notes to make sure I didn't lose anything or miss anything out. Any more questions, just let me know. Oh, here we go. Hey, I've got to go shortly, but I did a video, a young guy once who was taking frustrations out on his dogs every day. That evening I went to my phone once he finished watching it. Yeah, James, that's a really good, it's a good idea to video someone when they're losing their shit, because while they're losing their shit, they're out of their head and they're not thinking about what the person they're being. And if you can do that and show it back to them and go, look, tell me what you see right now. Like, tell me what you're seeing while you watch yourself just lose your shit. And 98%, 100% of people should admit that is not acceptable, right? And it's not who they want to be. Like, if you're an angry person there, you've got the anger there that's going to be put out to the rest of the people in your life. I've also had partners in my life that have seen me angry and then fear that I would get angry towards them, right? So by doing that, like you're putting out all this fear onto the people around you that you're going to lose the shit at them, especially your kids. I know my kids grew up in fear that I was going to be really angry at them. So I'll come back to you, Greta, with that question. So really be aware of the person you're being, because that's what everyone else is seeing. Like, would you go to the supermarket and just walk around stomping and yelling and screaming just because you're angry? Like, would you do that in public is a really good question. Would you do this behavior in public? And the answer would be no, because people would then, you'd be having other people view you and you'd be like, holy shit, I mean, would you, if someone was losing their shit in the supermarket, would you view them in a way that you'd be like, oh, that's not me? So, yeah, I mean, if you can show someone the behaviour they've got, then that's really good. And Greta's question was, any tips with the kids when they do something that makes you so mad? Much like the dogs, how have you trained them? So, and then you've got to talk to them in a way that they see the benefit in doing what you like. So show them the positive aspects or the positive side of doing what they, doing the jobs or behaving themselves, and really reinforce it when they do it. It's not so much as punishing them. It's not so much as punishing them when they misbehave, because what they might actually be doing is just looking for attention. Now, if you go out and if they're just going out and if they're not getting enough attention, and then they go, if they're misbehaving, they just download the belief that, oh, let's misbehave because at least mum's talking to me now. So really amplify the good stuff they do and give them constructive feedback on the things that aren't. And it's a really good way to say it is, hey Timmy, hey Sarah, it would really make me happy or proud of you if you stop that behaviour, if you stop doing, throwing toys at each other, or you stopped, throwing food on the floor, whatever it is they're doing. So really, don't necessarily just fly in there and punish them, because they're seeing that as attention. But if you can explain to them the positive upside of behaving in a certain way, especially when they've been real naughty, you just go, hey, look, that's really disrespectful to me and to, or to me or to mum and dad or whatever. And I would really appreciate if you could do this, because it would make me so proud of who you are. Kids want to hear that you're proud of them. They don't want to hear that they're wrong. If you're raising your children and only ever telling them they're wrong, they're going to grow up thinking they're wrong and that they're not good enough. So really focus on what you're saying. So amplify the good things. So then they grow up going, oh, I'm good, I'm good, I'm good. And, oh, if I'm not doing something right, at least someone's going to help and guide me, instead of just being told they're wrong. Because that's what they'll do. There's another metaphor about, if you've got mum and dad and they're having an argument and little Timmy's standing there, and Timmy's witnessing this argument, mum and dad having this massive argument, and then they go, oh shit, oh, little Timmy saw it, let's go give him some love just so he doesn't feel hurt or because we've been arguing in front of him. So one of them takes him out for an ice cream or goes and buys him a gift. And then it happens again, another argument, and he witnesses again, and then you're out to buy another ice cream. Little Timmy downloads the belief that he goes, oh, this is great. Every time mum and dad argue, I get a reward. So then Timmy goes, I want more rewards. I'll just misbehave so mum and dad argue about me, but at least I know I'm going to get a reward. So you've got to be really careful about what your kids are learning from your behaviours. Because he possibly could have learned, oh, a good way to get a reward is to make mum and dad argue. And a good way to make them argue is me misbehave. So then he's just downloaded the belief that I misbehave, I get a reward. So then he's going to grow up running riot, thinking he can do whatever he wants outside of the law, thinking he's going to get a reward. Next thing he's locked up in jail and going, oh, this is not a reward that mum and dad used to give me. So yeah, that's hope that helped, Greta. Any othave questions? What have we got here? Oh, Greta said, I know to breathe, step back, etc. Initial reaction, this absolute accept. Yeah, so I guess with that, Greta, like if you say you step back and wonder why it happened, and why you feel like that, there's a good chance you feel like that, because you've lost control. Or you're not, with the kids, it's probably you feel like they're not respecting you, actually. That could be another big one. So you feel like you've lost respect. Today we're stabbing the table with a homemade knife. Jeepers, Greta, what are you doing to these children? Here's friend, I really think it's just a version of artwork. Oh, yeah? Well, so buy him some art stuff, get him doing the artwork, or get him, he's probably very creative outdoors, I would imagine. We approach it in that way with values of kindness, respect, honesty. Yeah, the discussion about a lack of respect is a really good one, because they will then understand what respect is too. And if you can install that at a younger age, they will understand they need to earn respect, and it's not just given as well. So it's really, if you can, just yelling at the kids is ideally not ideal, if you know what I mean. When I was in the army, if we had a sergeant or a corporal just yelling at us, we'd all just switch off. We'd just go, right, he's losing his shit again. Whether we'd done something right or wrong, they'd just yell at us to try and use aggression to show their their authority and make us respect them. But it didn't really work because you just switch off when someone's yelling at you, much like my dogs used to when I used to yell at them. It's when they go, hey, you need to come in the office and I need to have a chat to you, that you're like, oh shit, now I'm in a bit of trouble. Okay, and that's when you really get the lesson, because when they speak to you calmly, it all comes in and it's actually going into the mind instead of you going, like, this guy's losing his shit, what an idiot, okay? So yeah, the way you talk to them is really important. I've got two nephews. When one plays up, the other one copies their behaviours. Is this a common thing that siblings do? Yep, because they're learning off each other. So the older one, normally the older one, or one of them has learned a behaviour from someone, and then because they spend so much time together, they start behaving the same because they want to be buddies, right? It's like if you go back to anyone, we all want to be accepted as part of a group. So if one kid's doing something, they're going to download the pattern from the other one. So yeah, it's very common that they'll copy each other's behaviour, especially if they're getting away with it. Yeah, and then once they've both got the behaviour, you actually have to discipline them both and teach them what the right behaviour is. Hope that helped, Hayden. Anything else? Anyone else got any more questions? It's good to see we've got a few people here. I would never have thought you had an anger problem. Mate, I was an expert at losing my shit. Did you not see me? Were you never loading a truck with me at home, Spud? Holy smoke. Before we widened our loading race, it was probably the biggest, most angry day of my life, loading out the lambs. Respect and attention, 100%, James. Yep. It's that attention and it's presence, like being present with them and actually listening to what they're expressing instead of shutting them down, is actually let them express themselves and ask the questions. And one thing I learned with my kids is don't react. When they start to express themselves, is don't react, okay? Let them really let everything out so that they get the opportunity to be heard. Because otherwise, I'm terrible. I was terrible at this. My kids just shut down and they felt like they couldn't talk to me because they feared me. Because they saw the way I behaved on the farm, they feared that I would use that kind of behaviour with them. So then they felt like they couldn't talk to me. Hey, Tony, good to see you, mate. I have two with ADHD and just feed off each other really struggle. Yeah, Billy Joe, I imagine that's another sort of a level. Yeah, the ADHD one is really, for me, it's really being present with them and really understanding and asking the questions and ask lots of questions so they felt really understood. And then giving them the right kind of attention so that they don't go out just to search for it and do the naughty shit or whatever, or just constantly over it. Give them really valued quality present time, like put the phone in the other room, turn the phone off and spend time with them, asking them what they want to do. So yeah, that would be my advice there. What else have we got? Any more questions coming through? So yeah, if there's no more questions, here we go. Any tools to deal with frustration when training or asking kids to do something and you don't get results you're wanting? I'm working on removing the emotion from the situation to help me. Yeah, 100%. Don't allow your emotion to take over. The only reason they're not doing what you're wanting and giving you the result you want is just you're not explaining it well enough in their language. So ask yourself, how can I explain this better so they understand? And just ask them, like, don't just go, why aren't you listening? Or why don't you get it? Just go, what part of this don't you understand right now to me? Like, okay, when I said this, what did you think I meant, Don't overreact, because if you overreact, it's just going to put fear on them and they're just going to be like, shh, Dad's an arsehole, I'm shutting down. Is the anger reaction always learnt the first 7 years? The base of it will be there, Doug, the very first time. You can't tell me there's not a child that doesn't get angry at a young age. It's just, like I said earlier, there was a guy there who, he really repressed it until he was like 21 or 22, where he came out and got in this fight and managed to beat this guy up. So he then really activated all of that repressed anger. He'd repressed it for so long that it just blew up when it came out of him. So I would say the answer is yes, it's always earned in that first 7 years. So the first 7 years is called the imprint period. And it's like if I go to Harvey Norman and I buy a computer and it just doesn't have a hard drive in it, and the guy goes, right, what you're going to do is you're just going to start using that computer, and for the first 7 years, whatever button you press the first time and you tell it that means something, that's what it's going to do all the time. So it's just downloading this pattern, and that's the way it happens. And then if it's been programmed that way and you don't reprogram it, it's just going to keep coming. It's just going to keep going. So on a classic keyboard, like if you press P, every time it's going to press P. Now, if you're smart enough, you could go into that hard drive on that computer and swap the P for the R. So that every time you could play a trick on someone. So that every time they're typing, instead of a P coming up, the R would come up. If you're smart enough, if you know what you're doing. Now, if you're anything like me with a computer and you don't know what you're doing, then you could try that, but you probably end up breaking the computer, or it'll just keep playing out the way it is. So there's ways to reprogram a computer's hard drive, and there's ways to reprogram yourself. Whatever was programmed the first time is the underlying root cause of your anger. Yeah, so hope that helped, Doug. Anger is it is a reaction too, and there's always an opportunity to intercept it, to change it from being a reaction to a response. There's always a gap. Like an event will happen, and I put a post up a while ago about the steps that everything goes through from when an event happens to produce a behaviour. And there's a point in there where all the stuff happens and it creates an internal representation of whatever that event means. So, for example, these sheep took off into the BlackBerry, and very quickly I processed everything through my unconscious mind and produced an internal representation that it meant I was going to lose control. So that triggered an emotion. And an emotion is an unprocessed thought. The emotion is triggered before the thought even happens. So I was triggered by this emotion, so I put myself in the state of anger. Well, initially it was irritation, but it very quickly became anger. And then once I'm in that state, that produces a physiology. And during that stage it's where the feeling is felt. So I feel the anger, and feeling is energy in motion. So because I went, this is an emotion of anger, and I labeled it as anger, and anger to me was all about get the blood flowing, use aggression. That created the feeling, which put the energy of blood flowing and aggression in motion, which produced the behavior from me. So what I needed to do was go back and go, right, okay, I've had this emotion of what I perceive to be anger triggered. I'm now going to intercept that thought and that feeling and create a different behavior from it. And the first thing you got to do is ask, how can I control the situation without losing my shit? What's the most calm, relaxed, resourceful way? What resources do I have inside of me that I can control the situation without losing my shit? So I hope that helped. That was a question. Yeah, that was Doug for the reaction. So you want to produce a response, not a reaction. A reaction is an uncontrolled response, and a response is a thought out process. Kids do get tired and read a situation. Kids are amazing at reading body language, man. Like my son Cody at the moment is becoming an expert at reading my body language. Something I've really had to work on. So yeah, like kids will always pick up on our body language. Same as like if you want to, anyone who's worked with horses, they are the best. So you can, if you've worked with a horse and if you've had a shit night or a shit morning, you go out to catch the horse for work, and you're going, even if you're aware of it, you go, right, I know I need to be calm around this horse, otherwise he's going to run away and hide. They will even pick up your unconscious physiology that's playing out. So it's really, really important that you, dealing with your children, understand what's your physiology and body language, because they're going to pick up on it and really shut themselves down if they perceive that you're pissed off about something. Even if you're saying, hey, Timmy, come over here, I just want to have a chat. I really want to chat right now. Oh, Wendy, come on. Our parents don't need to be involved in this conversation. Good. Anything else? Any other quick questions? If you've got any other questions, like just drop them in the comments later on, and I can I'll certainly get back to you or reach out, have a chat or something like that. If anybody wants to know more about, and it just doesn't want to post a public comment, wants to reach out personally, just send me a private message or even just give me a call, and I can certainly jump on the phone and have a chat with you. So I think that probably about wraps it up. Go home, ask yourself, or not go home, you are home, go back out of this and ask yourself the question of what's really the underlying reason for me to be angry, and where did I learn the anger? What was the place or the person I learned the anger from, or the situation? What was the first time? What was the root cause? So yeah, just want to say thanks for jumping on, and enjoy the rest of the evening. And yeah, the only limits you have in your life are the limits you choose to hold on to yourself. How do I turn this off?